Welcome to Stop the Fight, episode 33. And this is the other big heavyweight fight. Let's go!
Don't brag about taking my side piece! Don't brag about taking my side piece, though!
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
He's strong, man. Good boy, you know, just...
The third fight is upon us. The trilogy is here. We are now 2 days away from Tyson Fury against the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder. The third fight in our series. It's a lot of excitement. Having seen Joshua, one of the Chimera, be slain 2 weeks ago by Usyk, we now have a chance, like I said, to have an entirely different and entirely unforeseen heavyweight picture. As I've talked about it before, if even 8-9 months ago, someone came up to you, this is after the defeat of Wilder at the hands of Fury, after that second fight, if someone came up to you and tell you, hey, in about a year and a half, you may see a Wilder versus Usyk fight for all the belts, you'd say I was crazy. But here we are approaching a timeline, which seems like a timeline no one could foresee. And it's exciting. Again, excitement is in and of itself a value, especially in a sport like boxing, in any sport. And certainly one in which we bet. And of course, you know, over here, obviously no financial advice, but, you know, I disclose my bets. I disclose what I'm doing with my money, how I see fights. And, you know, this is exciting. And I love excitement. Same reason why I like the Triller fights, although they really, you know, dropped the ball on this whole Kambosos Teofimo fight. Again, that's Triller trying to dabble in actual boxing. It should not do. It should stay to kind of like, I don't want to call them freak shows. It's a little bit mean, but stay to more kind of mainstream type of fights. You know, Jake Pauls and Logan Pauls and YouTubers and the such, and leave the actual fighting to, you know, well-developed venues and avenues. So, again, Tyson Fury's third fight with Deontay Wilder. Like I said, even half a year ago, it seemed like this was not going to happen. And it seemed like we were going to have, like, one of the biggest super fights that could be made, or the biggest super fight, actually, that could be made in Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua for, like, every single piece of leather, imaginary title, unimaginary title in the world would be on the line for that. And, of course, we all know what happened. Deontay Wilder goes and exercises his rematch clause. Again, this goes to the arbiter. The arbiter sides with Deontay Wilder. The fight with Fury and Joshua is now off. And here we have the third fight with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. Now, of course, in the meantime, Joshua thought, you know what? I need to take care of this little cruiserweight who's coming up to my division and trying to, you know, make me look like a bum. That's not going to happen. So he goes, and of course, he fights Usyk. And this is where everything, you know, this is why we fight the fights, as they say. It's a trope in boxing. It's a cliche in boxing, but it is very legit. You do not have wins on your resume. You don't have transit wins, you know, transitory wins, as I call them. You know, you don't have these kind of stuff. You have to fight the fight. You have to get the win. So just because it looks like Usyk was going to lose and get knocked out by the much bigger, you know, people keep saying athletic Joshua. I will fight with anyone on this. I mean, not physically, verbally. Joshua's not that athletic, at least not on his feet. Sorry, guys, but this is the truth. He does not have fast feet, nor does he have athletic feet. So, of course, as we all know how it comes out, Alexander Usyk outboxes Joshua to a comfortable decision victory. I had it as wide as 9-3. I thought you can have it as close to 7-5. But I really thought you couldn't have it any closer than that. It was a clear decision victory for Alexander Usyk. And now on the flip side, we kind of have a very similar mirror going on with the Tyson Fury-Deontay Wilder fight. Everyone is just so certain that Tyson Fury is just going to beat Deontay Wilder because, you know, Deontay Wilder is just so beaten, has been so beaten, has been knocked out, has been outboxed, saying, oh, he shouldn't have won the first fight, shouldn't have gotten the draw in the first fight. Probably not. I thought Tyson Fury won the fight. But at the same time, you can argue that Tyson Fury was knocked out on that 12th round. He never made a 10 count. He made Jack Reese's 10 count. Jack Reese gave him a long 10 count, one of the longer ones I've ever kind of seen in boxing. And like I said, with another ref, this is a one-on-one fight. In the second fight, of course, we all know that Tyson Fury comes in there and really beats up Deontay Wilder. Beats him up quite convincingly. I don't think Deontay Wilder won a single round in that fight. He just got mauled by Fury. So we have a third fight, which of course everyone believes Tyson Fury is going to come in and maul him again. Well, I don't necessarily believe this is the case. Or at least not so much that I don't believe this is the case, but I think people are really discounting Wilder here. And I think you're doing this at your own peril. I think the casinos have gone a little bit crazy. I think I'm getting like a plus 275 by taking Wilder to win by knockout, and like a plus 200 or something to win outright. Of course, I myself am taking Deontay Wilder to win by knockout. Not because I believe he's going to win by knockout, but because I believe the odds are too sweet not to at least taste that. I don't believe he has a chance at outboxing Fury, unless it's, of course, going to be one of those things where he knocks him down numerous times over the course of a fight and wins a decision. But I don't believe Deontay Wilder has a chance to outbox him. I also don't believe necessarily that Fury's going to outbox him for 12 rounds, as in, like, he either Fury stops him or Wilder stops him. And when we're kind of sometimes, okay, a little sidetrack, but, I like to joke with my family that, what are the chances you win the lottery? A lot of people say, oh, it's like 1 in 10 million, whatever. I always joke and say, no, the chance you win the lottery is 50-50. Either you win or you don't. And sometimes when it comes to boxing, when it comes to any betting, it's not about what are the odds that can fall. It's what are the two outcomes that I foresee? Either I win or I don't, right? Well, in this case, I believe either Deontay Wilder knocks out Fury or Fury knocks out Deontay Wilder. And in this case, again, I'm not hedging, I'm not doing anything, just going straight Deontay Wilder by knockout. I think it's plus 275 on DraftKings. And that's just what I'm going. For me, there is no decisions, there is no DQs. Oh, I don't think DQ is in here as well. There is none of this, no draws, there's none of that. There's not over-under. Does Deontay Wilder win before the end of the fight? Or does Fury win before the end of the fight? That's all that I think is going to happen in this fight. Those I believe my two outcomes, and I'm taking Deontay Wilder. Now, am I convinced that Deontay Wilder will win this fight? No, I'm not. But sometimes when it comes to betting, greed's involved, and you have to look at what the odds are giving you. And in this case, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Fury was a minus 200 or so to win by knockout. Yeah, or minus 170 or whatever. I don't want none of that. I think if we're going to have an upset, if we're going to have something come out, I think we have a recharged, clear-headed, kind of no worries on his shoulder Deontay Wilder catches Fury, and this time Fury does not get up. I have said this before, and I'll say it again. Fury has struggled with Otto Wallin. Guys, unless Otto Wallin is some unknown heavyweight great, we've seen Fury struggle with lesser opposition. And, of course, we recently saw Otto Wallin against Dominic Breazeale, and he did not look particularly great in that fight. He won it wide. He won it clear. It was like 9-3, but it did not look like a fighter who troubled Tyson Fury as much as he did. We also seen Tyson Fury. Obviously, he didn't, I don't want to hold the Pineda fight against him and whatnot. That was coming off a layoff. Long drug-induced layoff. That was before the fight with Tyson Fury. But we've seen him struggle with the likes of Steve Cunningham, even knocked down by Cunningham. Yes, of course, he stopped him, but this is, Steve Cunningham is a smaller, light-punching cruiserweight. Not similar to Usyk. Doesn't have nearly that kind of skill level. But we've seen him struggle, and like many people have said after the Usyk fight with Joshua, don't get too hyped on Usyk. Nobody's unbeatable in this sport. The closest fighter I ever seen unbeatable, and I'll say it all the time, is Roy Jones in his prime. But nobody's unbeatable. Anyone can be beaten. We've seen Tyson Fury struggle. Hell, we've seen him we've seen him practically knocked out by Deontay Wilder one time before. We've seen him struggle tremendously against Otto Wallin. I believe that that Alan Wilder, if that was not Tyson Fury in there against literally who, that Otto Wallin fight could have been stopped by doctors stoppage, and it would have been a TKO loss. I guarantee you that Bob Arum probably told the commissioner or the doctors or whoever it was that you damn better not stop this fight under any circumstances. Unless Tyson Fury is knocked out, you do not stop the fight against Adam Wallin. Because Adam Wallin is literally who? To 99.99999% of boxing fans, he's literally who, let alone to the general public. Now, I like Otto Wallin. He seems like a decent fighter. Does not seem world caliber, but seems like a decent heavyweight. But no one was going to give him that stoppage. No one. So we've seen Tyson Fury be hurt in fights. You know, he's looking thin. Does anyone mention that Tyson Fury looks like he has a few bags under his eyes recently? How is training camp going? Was he training for the Joshua fight and now into a long camp for the Wilder fight? Remember, punch resistance. Punch resistance and endurance is key to fighting against Wilder. If he wants to implement the same strategy that he did in the second fight, he needs to be pushing Wilder on his front for the entire time. That's an energy-heavy expenditure. This isn't like in the first fight where you can a fight going backwards. It's a little bit less on the energy. You just have to keep moving. It's more on the feet. In the second fight, it's more energy intense because you have to lean, you have to push forward, you have to eat shots. If you are feeling a little bit under the weather, like, you know, the training camps have lasted too long, you maybe lost too much weight, maybe you took a little too much damage in sparring, you may run into a right hand by Wilder, one from which you will wake up to in maybe 10 or 15 seconds and to screaming, "Bomb Squad!" That's all you're going to hear. You're going to hear the Bomb Squad. And you're going to see the champ Wilder holding your belts. Okay? So there is that danger with Fury. You know, there's another YouTuber who I really like. I watch a bunch of his videos. That's Dwyer. I've been watching his videos actually for damn near 10 years now. And I think he's a really sharp boxing mind, but I believe in this case Dwyer specifically I think he's a little bit too high on the Tyson Fury supply. I believe that Deontay Wilder has proven that he can stop really big men, including Fury himself. That in order for Wilder, for Fury to replicate the same strategy, he has to be in tip-top condition. You know, this is, look, I hate to say it, but this is a guy who's done a heavy amount of drugs, who's partied a lot. We do not know what a 31-year-old Tyson Fury, how his body is aging. We expect him to perform the same way he performed in February of last year. We don't know if he can do that. We do not know what this layoff will do to him. The layoff for Wilder, year and a half, is not as crucial as it is for Fury because Fury is the boxer. Fury's the one who relies on timing. Wilder relies on right hands. You don't forget how to throw those, but you do take time to adjust to that millisecond adjustment that you need to make, that change of an angle, that slight step to the left. You know, that kind of standing off center so the jab, the opponent's jab doesn't land. Those kind of minutia, boxing minutia, that takes time and real fight time too, not just sparring. And like I said, if these sparring camps, if these training camps were long, and Tyson Fury, I don't know if you looked at pictures of him recently, he looks a little bit thin, a little bit gray. You know, I said the same thing about Joshua. Again, the weigh-in's going to matter even more so tomorrow because if, again, Tyson Fury is looking gray a little bit like Joshua was, I'm just going to go and double down my bet by Wilder by knockout. And that's what I'm going to do. Again, it's not because I believe Wilder will win. I believe Tyson Fury will win. But because the odds and because of my kind of spread of outcomes, I believe this is reasonable to take Wilder by knockout. Again, that's what you guys have to understand. I know I can already hear some of my friends who listen to me tell me, yeah, but what about just Tyson Fury outboxing him? Well, I don't think that's what's going to happen. He can outbox him and stop him, but I think either guy's going to get a stoppage. Those are the only two outcomes in this fight. I don't believe anyone's going to cruise to a decision. I believe stoppage are the only outcomes here. And I don't want to take the under. This is just greed and gambling, like I said. This is the greed and gambling part. I do not want to take the under in this fight. I don't want to take the over. I don't want none of it. I'm taking Deontay Wilder to win by knockout. And as a matter of fact, if you have to say, well, while I do believe chances are better that Fury wins this fight, I believe early in this fight, specifically early in the first 4 or 5 rounds, I believe Deontay Wilder will get, if he wins, I believe he will get Fury out there in those rounds. That's just the case. And like I said, I really respect Dwyer. I watch his videos, but I think over here, I think he just I thought this from the get-go, but I think my man Dwyer slightly overestimates Tyson Fury. I believe this is a little bit of a myth in the making with him. Yes, he beat Vladimir Klitschko. It was an ugly fight. It was an unwatchable fight. And, you know, he struggled against Wilder. Look, obviously, he's beaten Wilder. You know, I get it. He's the lineal champ and whatnot. But, guys, everyone could be beaten. This is a big guy. It's a big target for Wilder. He's been able to hit him before. I personally think that if he does it, he's going to do it early. If not, if you see Wilder, you know, not significantly hurt or stop Fury by the 4th or 5th round, I believe Fury's going to stop him within the next few rounds. Again, we'll see. What else do we have on this card? Okay, on the undercard. Now, this is a fight, the first fight of which I actually made a good chunk of change. This is the Robert Helenius versus Adam Kownacki fight. Now, Kownacki was undefeated going in this fight. This was a big upset. Of course, you know, I told my friends, I was like, guys, these odds are ridiculous. I think you were giving Helenius as plus 1,000. I remember I made a pretty penny on that. I was like, you guys are out of your damn mind. I'll tell you right now the problem with Kownacki. I just actually rewatched the fight. He walks with his left hand down. He stands with his left hand down or at his chest level, and he walks forward with his face. Yes. So when I saw that, and when I watched him kind of, I don't want to say struggle, but have more problems than needed against a Cristobal Arreola, a 2019 Cristobal Arreola, I thought to myself, look, there's no way in hell a more straight puncher, tall straight puncher, Robert Helenius, is going to have, especially the Robert Helenius who nearly decapitated the Nigerian Nightmare, Samuel Peter, you know, a few years back. I was like, there is no way this is a plus 1,000. Of course, I took Robert Helenius, and in the 5th round, Robert Helenius knocks Kownacki down 2 times and then stops him. Robert Helenius was hurt himself in the fight, but it played out as I said. Numerous times with the straight right hands just nailing down on Kownacki. Kownacki just fights with his hands down. He just tries to throw a lot of punches. He's not a particularly heavy-handed guy, Kownacki. He has pop. He has respectable pop. He's what's it called 20-1 with 15 wins coming by way of knockouts. It's a 75% knockout ratio on the win side. And you know, Helenius himself is no slouch. He's 30-3 with 19 knockouts and 2 losses by way of knockout. So Helenius, you know, when we're looking at the rematch, you know, I've seen the odds. They're not on DraftKings. Oh, sorry about that. They're not on DraftKings. The odds are currently, I'm just looking at Box.live, and I'm seeing odds at plus 188 for Helenius and minus 250 for Kownacki. Now, those are legit odds for this fight. You know, Helenius it looked like he was hurt and having a lot of trouble with Kownacki at random points in the fight, but he was still able to land the zone. And this is about where I like the odds to be at. But given that Kownacki's chin had cracked, you know, I always think of Bam Bam Rios, right? And I always think of fighters that are pressure fighters who throw a lot and get those kind of like grinding stoppages. Provodnikov's another one who get these kind of grinding stoppages on fighters. I often see that once their chin is cracked one time, it is cracked for good. You can't solder that bad boy back together. And I believe in this fight again, Helenius wins by knockout again. I believe Kownacki, he can only fight. He's a choo-choo train. He fights one way. He fights going forward or going back. There is no lateral movement. There is no head movement. You're not going to teach him this at this point. He goes forward. He's a bigger guy. He tries to out-muscle you, throws a lot of punches. Except Helenius is a bigger, stronger guy. thinner guy, even while being bigger. And for this reason, I believe that Robert Helenius, the Finn, is going to get him out again. I think that's the take here. I think if you can say, I mean, obviously the I don't see what the odds are, like again on DraftKings, but if there's an under for this fight, taking the under is very, very, very safe. Unless the under is like something really tiny, but the under is very safe. Both fighters were hurt in their first fight. I like I said, I do not believe that Kownacki is going to learn to box. He's going to come forward again, and I think he gets knocked out again, or he breaks through Helenius and stops him. What else do we have in this fight? We have our boy Edgar Berlanga. Now, this is the Puerto Rican or the Brooklyn native. Edgar Luis Berlanga, the chosen one. Now, he's 24-year-old, 17-0 with 16 knockouts. The thing about Berlanga is before his previous fight against Demon Nicholson, he was 17-0 with 17 knockouts, all 17 coming by way of first-round knockout. 94% knockout this guy is. That's something special. Of course, that was against subpar opposition. And once he stepped up to Nicholson's level, even though he won every single round in the fight, you know, he was not able to get him out of there. Does that mean his power is not legit? No, his power is obviously very real. And he's now going up against Marcelo Esteban Concieres. Now, he's an Argentine. I haven't heard of him, except for the fact that I know that he's lost to Billy Joe Saunders by knockout in a pretty close fight in the 11th round. He was stopped finally. But let me tell you something about Argentine fighters. So you guys know the English curse or the British Isle curse that I have, where in big fights, and even with Josh, although I explained in the previous podcast that I don't want to call that to be as like a British curse thing. This is like the reverse British curse. When I see an Argentine fighter, I always take the Argentine fighter. I just do. Something about Argentine fighters, something about the power. These guys are all powerful. They all kind of look similar in a weird way. They all kind of like, you know, they all look like Matisse a little bit. And Marcelo's in a similar way. Concieres, it looks kind of similar with that. So Concieres is 30-2 with 1 draw, 16 wins by way of knockout, 1 loss by way of knockout. And again, he was very competitive, very, very, very competitive with Billy Joe Saunders before he was knocked out in the 11th. He, of course, has a split decision loss against Sebastian Horacio Papeschi. And, you know, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the fight. I don't know what to say about it. But, like I said, this is, for me, this is the reverse curse of the British Isle. And if I can get odds on Marcelo, they should, I guarantee you, they should be really wide, really, really wide. I'm 100% putting money down on the Argentine fighter for the upset. Not that I believe it's going to happen, but because, like I said, sometimes history, sometimes luck has a way of shining on people. So, yeah, that's that. Well, guys, that's all we're going to talk about this week. Again, obviously, we'll have a big post-fight on this. Historic fight one way or the other. You know, with a Wilder victory, we already know that Dillian Whyte is getting the winner of these two guys, which is great because Usyk is going to have the rematch against Joshua. Dillian Whyte finally has his chance. Finally. So, again, super exciting. Of course, depending on who wins here adds a lot of intrigue. I think Dillian Whyte actually has a better chance against Fury than he does against Wilder. But we'll talk about that all in the post-fight. That's going to do it for me. It's over.
I'm going to go home and break my wife's hip.
Don't brag about taking my side piece. Don't brag about taking my side piece, though.
I broke my back. Back is broken. Spinal.
And she's strong, man. Good boy, you know, just...